Hello, what's up guys? Currently working on my top 10 anime of the year for 2021 video. I know I was planning on dropping it before the year ended, but sometimes things don't always go according to plan. So yeah, I'm currently working on that and it'll drop pretty soon, but I wanted to also drop a quick video with my honorable mentions. There's so many good anime that came out, even choosing my top 10 was pretty difficult. So I wanted to show some love to those anime that didn't make the list, but also, played a profound role in my experience for the year. So yeah, if you guys enjoy the video, if you guys have watched any of these anime, definitely drop a like and tell me about it in the comments below. But yeah, let's get into it. So this first one on the list is a little bit different than all the other ones. I'm primarily putting it on because it hasn't finished airing yet, so I didn't feel like I could, realistically put it in my top 10 list without seeing it through all the way. And I'm talking about a summer ranking. Now, I could easily see it being in my top list for 2022, even though we have about half of it to go. Wit Studio, as many of you know by now, is responsible for some fire-ass anime. And despite their financial struggles as of late, they're putting in a lot of effort and passion and respect into this project. I think a lot of people had a bad first impression of this anime because of the art style. It looks like something you'd see in a children's book or fairy tale, but this show is probably one of the more layered, complex anime that came out last year. Immediately from episode 1, we are thrown into the story of Boji and Kage, misfits of their own worlds turned into unlikely friends, and as the episodes progressed, I came to realize that the plot of this show was becoming much larger than I originally thought. The story turns into a mixing pot of treachery, politics, and mystery, and adventure, all wrapped in its supernatural elements. It's also pretty interesting to see the inspiration the show takes from classic fairy tales and coming-of-age stories that we've come to love. And although we're only 11 episodes in, there's already so many subplots laid out that run alongside the main one. So many side characters that I originally thought were disposable have gotten proper characterization, becoming pivotal to the conflicts at hand and making them integral to the story. I also hear that there's a lot of content to the source, which is a web novel, so we may be looking at a decently long running anime if everything goes right. Okay, second one. Now, this was a show that I think completely went over people's heads. Shadow's House. This takes place in a mansion on a hill where mystery is only the beginning of what the story has to offer. So don't be fooled by the maid costumes, cause there's a lot more than meets the eye to these kids. They have the distinct honor of serving the Shadows family, a dubious group of individuals who recruit them to look after their children. I won't say much more, but this show really makes you think about the line between human and shadow, coupled with the fact that every episode there seems to be something creepy going on. Shadow's house will have the hair on the back of your neck stand up more than once. Also, are we just gonna ignore this obvious inspiration? World Trigger Season 2 and 3. If I had to describe World Trigger in a few words, it would be the show I didn't know I needed in my life. I was so happy when Season 2 came out after having watched the first one 5 years ago. I think people had issues with it originally, largely because of our feeble main character, Usamu Mikumo, and the pacing of the story. Sometimes it takes 73 episodes for an MC to grow up and get character development, but sometimes it's also worth it. This time around, the story is considerably more polished. Bouncing off the rank wars and neighbor invasions prior, World Trigger kept true to its roots and continued with focusing on the strategy behind fights, while at the same time greatly improving its art and animation. New characters enter the fray, old characters remain, but this show does a good job of making so many of them likable and memorable. One small thing that I think goes a long way is that while Border is a team-based defense agency, our characters in Tamakoma 2 don't always need to be together on screen for the show to feel interesting. You can often find them mingling with other border agents, whether it's for training, hanging out after hours, or getting food. I think that adds a realistic aspect to their job as border agents and allows viewers to become familiar with side characters, each with their own distinct personality. The balance between serious and slice of life elements in this show is definitely something that's been refined over time. Wonder Egg Priority. Wow, what a refreshing show. I'll admit, the plot holes towards the end weren't helped at all by the way they handled the final episode's release, but what this show sought out to do was very admirable for an anime original. Trauma is often very difficult to describe to oneself, let alone other people. However, this show was able to personify the darkest parts of depression, anger, and grief, to name a few. And in doing so, it illustrated how the characters come to understand themselves and, more importantly, accept all that they are so they could find peace. It's also pretty important that they show focus on girls and kids in their teenage years or preteen years, kind of mirroring the development that happens during that time, and just showing how when you're growing up and maybe going through puberty, there's so much happening inside of you mentally and physically that sometimes it's hard to process all that. So I think this could be a good anime for a lot of young people to watch, but there are some harsh concepts involved. So if you watch this show for a cohesive story, you'll probably miss the point, but you can take something away from every episode to incorporate into your own life. I would very much like a season 2 as well because the story seemed to be evolving into something much greater. And last but not least, Beastars Season 2. So Beastars is an anime that gets a lot of bad press simply because of its premise. It really feels like people don't want to give it a chance because they label it as the token furry anime. It's hard even recommending it to people because once you tell them that the characters are animals, they're instantly turned off. I mean, we grew up with this. I think we can handle watching animals behave normally like humans. Frankly, those people are missing out on an amazing story. Season 2 continues Legoshi's once monotonous school life, now forever altered by crime entanglements and continuing to wrestle with his innate instincts as a carnivore. The tension this time around is so thick you could cut it with a knife. One thing Beastars definitely doesn't get enough credit for is its amazing CGI in an era where the craft hasn't been perfected yet in anime. To be honest, this almost cracked my top 10 for the year, and it was really hard choosing between this and number 10. But you'll have to see that in the next video, so be on the lookout, and let me know if you watched any of these and how you felt about them. Be sure to leave a like and hit that sub button, I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the top 10 anime of 2021 video coming soon. Or it might have dropped already by the time you see this. Anyways, peace.